China is accusing India of a severe military provocation after Indian troops crossed into the disputed border area between the two countries and opened fire, in the latest escalation between the two nuclear-armed countries. Here is what we know so far. The People's Liberation Army said Indian forces had illegally trespassed the disputed border and on Monday, September 7th, fired warning shots at a Chinese patrol, according to reports by the Associated Press and India's Times Now News. Thousands of Indian troops occupied strategic vantage points last week in a stealth nighttime operation near the south bank of the glacial Pangong Lake, Bloomberg reports. The action was taken when India saw Chinese forces moving into the area and outflanked them. On Sunday, Indian media outlets reported that Indian fighter jets were carrying out sorties every few hours to monitor Chinese activities near the disputed border. India had already deployed MiG-29s, Su-30MKIs and Apache attack helicopters to the area after China stationed additional jets, bombers, and attack helicopters at 4 Chinese bases near the disputed border. The relationship between China and India has deteriorated since a clash in the Galwan Valley on June 15th, in which 20 Indian troops were killed. In response, the Indian Navy quietly deployed frontline warships around the Malacca Straits near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, a choke point for Chinese shipping. India also sailed 1 warship into the South China Sea. In a YouTube interview with online news platform The Wire, China expert Shiv Shankar Menon said Beijing's behavior has been very different from what we have seen in the past. What we have seen is multiple incidents, multiple moves forward, and China occupying spaces which it has never occupied before along the line of actual control, said Menon, who has served as India's ambassador to China. Menon told The Wire he believes the Chinese Communist Party is resorting to nationalism because of domestic and economic stresses at home. You can see it in their behavior in the Yellow Sea, towards Taiwan, passing laws without consulting Hong Kong, more assertive on India's border, a tariff war with Australia, he said. On Sunday, the BBC aired a video from China so shocking that the communist motherland's ambassador to the UK was left incoherent during an interview. Drone footage taken from China's Xinjiang province apparently shows numerous Uyghurs with shaved heads who were blindfolded and led off to trains. Does this remind you of anything? Because it should. The BBC's Andrew Marr presented the video, which he said has been authenticated by Western intelligence agencies. He then asked Ambassador Liu Xiaoming what's on all our minds, "Can you tell us what's happening here?" Embarrassingly, the good ambassador had an on-screen meltdown. Liu responded by saying, "Let me tell you this, have you been to Xinjiang? Xinjiang is regarded as the most beautiful place in Xinjiang." You caught that? Xinjiang is the most beautiful place in Xinjiang. There's a Chinese saying, "You don't know how big China is." Marr replied, "Ambassador, that is not beautiful coverage." Marr then showed the ambassador the video testimony that Uyghur women were forcibly sterilized against their will. In the video, Uyghur woman Zumrat Dawood said, "We offered to write a letter promising not to have any more children, but they refused, saying she must have the procedure, or we will put her name on the study list. You can always be sent back again." We will reproduce Liu's brilliant retort. He says, "The government's governing policy is strongly opposed to this kind of practice, but I cannot rule out, single cases for any country. These single cases, a single case. We treat every ethnic group in China as equal." Here, ladies and gentlemen, if you will turn your encyclopedia to the entry of bare-faced lies, you'll find Mr. Liu's face in the illustration. Numerous international watchdogs have pointed out that China has imprisoned about 1 million Uyghurs in its so-called re-education camps. So how does a communist count? 1 million victims equals 1 single cases equals 1 single case. And they say Americans can't do math.
Experts are starting to seriously worry about war between the US and China. Here is what we know so far. The US and China have conducted numerous exercises in the Pacific in recent weeks, stoking fears of a looming confrontation over Taiwan. Over the last 3 weeks, China has announced 4 separate military exercises in the Bohai Gulf, the East Sea, the Yellow Sea, and the South China Sea, the South China Morning Post reported on Monday. The PLA also held major exercises near Taiwan in mid-August to safeguard national sovereignty. Taiwan took the unusual step of announcing its surface-to-air missiles had tracked approaching Chinese fighters, as U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar visited the country earlier this month. On Tuesday, August 25th, Beijing accused the U.S. of sending a U-2 spy plane to trespass on live fire exercises being conducted by China in the Yellow Sea that same day, according to the state-run Global Times. On August 15th, Washington sailed the USS Mustin destroyer through the Taiwan Strait, the U.S. 7th Fleet said, just days after a strike group led by the USS Ronald Reagan conducted operations in the South China Sea. And in the latest salvo, China, on Wednesday, August 26th, test-fired 2 missiles, including a carrier-killer DF-26B, from Qinghai and Zhejiang provinces into the sea between Hainan and the Paracel Islands, according to a report in the Associated Press. Speaking to the South China Morning Post, Colin Ko, a research fellow at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University, said Beijing conducted the 4 military exercises at nearly the same time to send out both political and operational signals. The first relates to demonstrating resolve in keeping up with peacetime combat preparations in the eyes of both domestic public and external audiences, Ko said. The move would be primarily directed at the recent spate of U.S. and allied military activities in those areas. Operationally, it's to showcase the PLA's ability to carry out major mobilization of forces for training across multiple sea areas, which also highlights that the PLA isn't affected in any way by the pandemic.
Amidst a deadly global pandemic, China is planning to rattle sabers against Taiwan with major military exercise, according to the Japanese press. China's People Liberation Army Navy plans to conduct a large-scale amphibious assault drill off Hainan Island in August. Citing unnamed Chinese sources, the Japan Times reports the drill will involve landing ships, hovercraft, and helicopters, while the carrier Shandong has been deployed in Hainan since December last year. According to the Japan Times, the exercise is designed to simulate a Navy and Marines attack on the Taiwan-held Pratas, a strategically important islet that sits astride China's military egress from Hainan to the Pacific Ocean. Tensions between Beijing and Taipei rose after Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen was elected into office in 2016, on a wave of popular anger against the pro-Beijing policies of her predecessor Ma Ying-jeou. According to Reuters, Taiwan in April announced plans to buy arms from France to upgrade its fleet of 6 French-made Lafayette-class frigates. Responding to protests from Beijing, France's foreign ministry suggests China should focus on battling COVID-19 instead. En anglais, it means go pound the sand. The U.S. Naval Institute reports a U.S. Navy Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer made a transit through the Taiwan Strait to warn Beijing's leadership against taking aggressive action in the region. The Japan Times reports U.S. electronic warfare aircraft may have passed the strait 14 times in April alone. According to Taiwan's state-run Central News Agency, a Chinese Y-8 aircraft flew into Taiwan's air defense identification zone before being headed off by fighter jets on April 8th. This is the 7th time Chinese military planes flew near Taiwan's airspace this year.
China just abolished Hong Kong's autonomy in one fell swoop. Beijing has passed a new national security law on Tuesday. The controversial law grants the government sweeping powers that critics fear will be used to quash Hong Kong's freedoms and autonomy. The legislation passed the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress by unanimous vote. The law sets down new crimes for subversion, splitism, and colluding with foreign governments and outside forces. The maximum penalty is life imprisonment. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam will receive authority to appoint judges to hear national security cases, while Beijing gains the power to interpret laws as it sees fit. These developments have cast into doubt whether judicial independence will survive in the territory. Hong Kong Free Press reports that within minutes of the law's passage, Hong Kong activist Joshua Wong withdrew from Demos Sisto, the democracy group he had led. Later, Demos Sisto announced that the group is to disband in a Facebook post. And just like that, Hong Kong's freedoms are gone.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.